Alright, it's Ross Raven, aka Nefer Jordal, and we're going to be analyzing BBQ vs Kangdu, Game 2 from the LCK Spring Split, Week 9, Day 3. Let's go. And in the meanwhile, we're going to look at some Koreans that'll go up a sign and go like, oh, don't show me on camera, please. Oh, notice me, senpai. No, don't notice me. It's just a cultural thing, right? Just making a little bit of fun at it. I understand. It's fine. Alright, anyway, let's get right into it. I'll just... I'm mainly, if you're wondering what's this gonna be, it's more going to be focused on analysis than just shoutcasting. I'm not just gonna be like, oh, no, we're going to see the... Like, that's not really my thing. I'm just gonna actually try to analyze what's going on and what you can... About that you can maybe apply in your own games. Just learn some stuff about macro and micro, everything involving the game. Anyway, let's get started. Olaf doesn't want to pull from his laners. He just wants them to apply pressure if they can bot lane. Not really taking full advantage of that. And now we look at the first thing in the game. Oh no, look at this, look at this. And the Morgana just steps right into it, right? She's trying to bait it out right on the edge over here, right? But she steps into it right over here. Those kinds of mechanical misplays at a professional level, that hurts. Like, you'd either have to start, like, you could pull this, right? If you bind or pull, then I understand that you're trying to bait this, but if you're not going to use any abilities on this brush like this, it's just like, and then face plant into it. I don't know what the hell you're doing. I don't know. A huge blunder. Caitlyn is like, hey, what are you doing there? And suddenly it's like, okay, I'm almost dead now. And now they waste 2 summoners. Now, Zayad is in a little bit of an awkward spot here. Just have to waste a heal. Waste is a big word, but... So now they are ahead in summoners. Ahead of Flash at least. And probably in terms of health, right? So anyway, with that going on, Olaf opted to go for Wolves first, obviously, because he wants to start topside and try to meet the Sejuani bot side. Now, I think if you're going to go for that kind of strategy, going for this Gromp is a huge blunder, because if Sejuani goes for full clear, or even goes for the Scuttler after doing like 4 camps, you can simply scout her out, right? Like, you can kill her. And right now, Olaf is kind of taking a long time to start bot side, so I really feel like, especially because the Gromp is all the way on the left side, it takes longer to go towards the Raptors. I feel this is like too big a loss of tempo. Anyway, that's just my thoughts on that. So in the meanwhile, they go for the standard round. You always go red before Raptors, right? This is just one of these things that you do. I'm not going to go into why. I'm just going to take it for granted for now and move on to the next thing, which is that if you look at the Sejuani, she started topside hoping that she could avoid Olaf, obviously expecting a pull from bot lane, but little did they know, right, that actually did not happen. They didn't know where he started because he started on a camp. You don't know if it's a bot or topside camp. Would be standard to go bot side, but he wanted to kind of predict that the Sejuani would try and, you know, start topside. So this is one of these topics where, like, it's like rock, paper, scissors, right, where someone's, like, has a reason to go rock, so you think, like, okay, I'm gonna go paper, but then you realize your opponent knows you're gonna go paper, so they're gonna go scissors, so you go with rock, right? You see how that keeps going. So it's just kind of like, at some point you just have to randomize it. At some point this doesn't work anymore. You just have to sometimes go top side, sometimes go bot side. And that's kind of what you see in these kind of games. If you look at where people start, it's kind of random. Like, they just keep randomizing it. Just make sure that they can't be perfectly predicted, and just move it in favor of what actually works for you the best, right? That's how these things work. Game theoretically, you just go for let's say you have a pretty big advantage on starting bot side, then you just do that most of the time. But you still need to randomize it. Anyway. And meanwhile, if we look at the composition, just a note about the composition, I would say that Olaf is a little bit more early game than the Sejuani. Right here, I have to stop this analysis and actually go into this. Look at this, look at this. So the Falcons are coming in from right here. He can throw out his abilities from right here. And Olaf actually stops, like, at this point. Look at their positions. He should have kited at least towards here, in my opinion. And maybe make sure that he can kite around this Falcon that's going to be thrown out. Just in this area he should have been, right? Not in this area up front here. So that is quite a big positional misplay. And look at that. Like, he's going to get boned by this Falcon, right? It gets hit by the stun and gets killed. And this is a clean kill for them, for the BBQ. Like, I don't understand. Like, it was pretty fucking obvious that he was leaving his lane and was going to try and throw down his abilities, right? It's like... Yeah, just positionally misplayed that. But what I was talking about is that they have a little bit more of an early game comp with Caitlyn and Olaf. Like Swain and Valkos both work in late game. I'd say Swain is just a little bit too strong. You should just ban it because it's just too effective right now. But just saying, like, it's from the mid game on, it's just really strong. It's not really weak late game. It's strong early and strong late. So the only differentiating factors, in my opinion, are those Olaf and Caitlyn. Anyway, moving on, we just see some noodle fighting in the top lane, because that's like the only thing that's going on right now. You know, it's like, if you look at the Krugs, I don't know when Sejuani did that. Krugs are usually one of these camps that you only clear when you're power farming a little bit and a little is going on, because Krugs are kind of isolated from the rest of the map. It's one of these things you do when, for instance, you want to do a return gank top or something, and in the meanwhile you just want something to chew on, you know? But it's very isolated, right? The camps that are closer to mid, right, are just much more relevant, right? They're closer to that river where you can scout things and shit. Like, the Krugs are just, like, way over there, like, way just, like, oh, yeah, we're on the map, we're here, but we don't really do anything. So it's really just one of those things you take after everything else is down. Look at the Olaf now rotating towards the bottom, being like, oh, yeah, I guess I can't gank yet. I'm just gonna clear this Krugs in the meanwhile, right? I'm just gonna move in on the next wave, right? Anyway, Morgana going for a little bit of poke here. Hits a binding. It's not really interesting to analyze bindings, right? It's like, yeah, you throw them out in a general direction, and just like, yeah, the exact predictions on it. It's so pointless to analyze that. It's not like a charm, right, which is very close things. Like, you can actually closely look at laning patterns, and you can't really, if you can't react to it, essentially. That's the differentiating factor between a bind and a charm, is that a charm often cannot be reacted to, while a binding usually can. And when you can't react to it, then it just becomes rock, paper, scissors, right? And otherwise it's just like, yeah, I'm just going to react to it and sidestep it. So that's the two possibilities, right, in the way that you can land skill shots and dodge them. Prediction and reaction. Okay, well, anyway, moving on. The early game here is not too interesting, so I might just skip beyond this a little bit. I really couldn't care less about, like, yeah, sure, the Ornn does the classic tactic, which is shove the wave and then scout, right? You need to be able to time that properly, though, because you don't want to shove the wave and then get ganked. You need to make sure that you can shove while the Olaf is in its jungle. So that does require a fair bit of timing and skill. I, as a top laner, would know. This Blue Buff's gonna get transferred, that's fine. And, right, Falcon's gonna back first. Alright, anyway. So, are we gonna get into the juicy shit here? There's gonna be some juicy shit, I can tell you that much. I know there's gonna be some juicy shit, because I took a little gander at the game beforehand to prepare myself for this analysis, right? Just to see what's worth going into and what is not. Hope you guys don't mind. I'm working with a little bit of, you know, I already have knowledge of some things, so my analysis is not always entirely fair because of that, I guess. But I'm still analyzing it pretty much the same way as the first time I saw it. No big, no, I'm not a fraud, I promise. Anyway. Looking at this, I mean, come on, dude, like, what are these competitive games these days, right? Just these plebs farming it out, like, come on, dude. I want to see some blood, you know? And now you see, this is pretty dangerous, right? They have a pink ward, but they're not clearing it. And they can't really clear it. They know that Sejuani might be there. And it's like, this is a really awkward spot for them. They're sending the Olaf on the way because they need to fix this, right? They need to fix the whole lane position plus pink ward in that brush situation, right? It's like, I would say Morgana might have been able to do something there with Black Shield on her. Or let Caitlyn do that with a Black Shield on her. I feel like trapping, like if you just trap this brush first and then do this with Black Shield, you could do it. But that's already requires a fair bit of coordination. They're just sending the Olaf over instead. I understand that that's also a viable option. I just feel like right now you don't know if she's in there. I guess they really felt confident that she was there. And they actually get an engage here. And look at this. Like, this is also one of these awkward little things. Where, look at this. Like, you see that here is a Q plus headshot, right? So she hits the headshot and it kills her. And the problem is that the Morgana kind of wastes a lot of resources by flashing in here with ultimate. And that kind of just doesn't do anything, right? It's one of these quick evaluations when you're thinking on your feet. As a pro player, you need to be able to evaluate, like, is that shot gonna kill her? In this case, the answer is yes, it's gonna kill her. You need to, that's just kind of shit that makes you a good pro player, right? And meanwhile, I'm not sure what the Olaf is trying to accomplish here. Like, 2v1. With the TP coming in as well here. Like, best, like, I just... Am I watching Korean pro players here? Like, look at that ability. Like, he was over here by the time she was launching it. Look at this. Like, okay? Look at that. It's not even on the edge. Just throw it like that. Not like this, dude. I don't know if he expected a sidestep of some sort. And look at how awkward this is, right? Like, these fights are just so awkward. Everybody's doing their own little thing, like their own little mechanical plays and shit. And if you just look at what Olaf's trying to do here, he tries to bait out something. I'm not sure. He walks in here. He doesn't throw an axe, right? And then he just walks out. And it's like, oh yeah, right, Olaf, Vel'Koz. What he should have done is try to... or walk in a circle around the Vel'Koz, because the range on that ability is so long, like, you're not gonna walk out of it. And the Vel'Koz flash is just way too forced, in my opinion. So, misplays all around. These teams, it's like going for that flash stun against someone who also has flashed, and the question is, do we want to trade that as an immobile mage? I don't think it's worth on against almost any champion when you're playing an immobile mage like Vel'Koz. You don't want to trade flashes, right? If you're I don't know, if I was Gnar, right, and I can like force a flash from Vel'Koz, the immobile mage, well, I have a jump and shit, right, and I'm a tank, sure, right, I'll do that. But when I'm the immobile mage, why would I want to trade like that? That makes no sense. And you're not telling me that the Vel'Koz didn't know they were just gonna trade summoners, right? Like, obviously, yeah, obviously. The W is pretty telegraphed. So, you're not gonna get anyone off guard with that, right? So, a lot of pressure in this bot. Like, obviously with tanks, the thing is you can gank when you're already close, when you're already there anyway. You can go for a quick little gank, see if you can get a kill. But usually it's not worth doing shit like brush camping and shit, because the problem is you can't get the turret with these tanks, right? If this was, if one of those two players had innate turret pressure, right? Had demolition and shit, like, yeah, sure, you can do something. Like, if it was a Yorick, you can gank for a Yorick and try to get the turret and open up the top lane. And then, through the top lane, you can impact the bot lane, because the top laner can roam. Or draw in tremendous pressure if he has enough of a lead to pressure the tier 2, right? So that's what you can do in that case, but now there's just two tanks, so what those tanks do is just farm it out in the top lane and then teleport and see who wins, right? It's like, that's all they're doing, really. So yeah, that's just one of these ways that you can play, and it's like, yeah, in that case, it's just not worth ganking top lane beyond once in the entire game. Like, yeah. Manner of Command OP, they have picked up on that meta beautifully. That much is clear. Anyway, I really don't know in this case. It's like, what they do is trade objectives, and against the thing about that trading objectives is that essentially what you're doing is you're bringing the game closer to an end, you could say, right? Because once you just start trading turrets all the way through, what happens is everybody loses their turrets and the game's closer to being over. One Baron will simply be an inhibitor, which is almost the death. Like, that is almost the end of the game, right? When you get an inhib. Not always, but like 80% of the games, right? So what happens in that case is like, well, the people who have an early game team comp, right, are kind of the ones that lose out on that. Unless you can trade advantageously, of course, right? In that case, it's fine. Wow, he hits both of those abilities on the ultimate. That's just, again, just timings, dude. Like, if you play this game every day, right? Like, you have to get adjusted to the timings. Otherwise, you're not really using your practice time efficiently. You have to start learning, like, when a Rakan like, how long does that last? How long does the Shen ultimate shield last? How long does the Olaf ultimate last? These are just timings you have to start looking at, and you can't just throw your abilities way inside the Olaf ult, right? That's just not gonna work. Especially when Olaf is meta, you see it almost every game in the solo queue. You should get accustomed to that in a few games' time. So, yeah, don't really understand what the problem is there. Yeah. Well, obviously the laning phase is over. Zaya's just gonna go to wherever the most farm is that she can get without dying. Right, with Sejuani top side and a bunch of pink wards, she can get that wave fairly safely. Because that's one of these things that makes competitive play and different from solo queues, that people coordinate how people are gonna catch waves in the lanes, right? And they're just gonna make sure that the Zaya can get 10 CS every minute, right? Just get 2 waves every minute, essentially. So yeah, that's what's happening here. And Rakan is just, I don't know what the Rakan is doing here. I don't know. Like, sometimes I can't really tell if it's a competitive player knowing something I don't, or if it's just a competitive player being like, oh, I'm just gonna stand here now. I don't understand why you would want that lane closer to the enemy turret. I would say it's quite the opposite. So, yeah, I don't understand the point. I really don't. So, in the meanwhile, blue team has a couple of players in base, right? They don't have any pressure right now. They're gonna use the Herald in mid. That makes sense, right? Just crush down that tier 1. Like, the bot lane's coming in for reinforcements, so it's not like they had an innate advantage. Like, they wouldn't have been able to get it without the Herald, because that's the evaluation you have to make, right? And they get tremendously caught here. And it's just like, whoops, yep, whoops. Like, if you look at this, in a replay, it's like one of these things where you know that Rift Herald does this much damage, right? So you know the turret's about to get killed. And I don't know, the Black Shield from Morgana was already used here. I'm not sure why, by the way. Yeah, it was actually pretty good Black Shield. I understand the Black Shield here. I don't know why the Olaf walks in like that. So the Olaf takes the risky route, essentially. Instead of looping around towards the back, he walks in on the offensive side and suddenly notices he has to back the hell off. So that means Morgana has to waste her Black Shield, or use it, right, however you want to call it. Which means she's now being caught out. She should have just respected the Ornn engage, right? It's one of these things, like, they know the abilities are on cooldown, and they're in a world of hurt, right? Okay. They kind of turned this around, like, they tried to at least get some return kills in, because the Caitlyn's just completely fucking full health. And they're focusing, like, look at that, right? There's not a single hit being used here. And they turn around because of the AoE, but they can't get the Caitlyn. Now, I disagree with the Caitlyn's movements here. Like, here, first of all, you have the Ornn trying to go for a counter-engage here. Whoop. Sidestep that. Boom. I would say that right now you want to hug this part, right? And just kite inwards. Because they have nothing to catch you out on anymore. You can just essentially just face plant into them, right? It doesn't matter. You just have to stay away from the Vel'Koz, right? So you can just kite inward. Even though there's a lot of players there. But she just keeps kiting towards the same area. She moves to the bottom, she moves to the top. She moves to the bottom, she moves to the top. Not very difficult for a Vel'Koz to land a stun on someone who's permanently moving in one circle, right? It was really obvious. Her motions were super obvious. She should have changed the pattern and just, I think, just stay away from the Vel'Koz in the first place. Just kite inward. But yeah, sure, I'm not a Challenger AD carry. That's just my thoughts on it. I'll see if I'll get there in the next season, but not right now. It's always funny, right, how bad... I can make a play and I can analyze it right after, but the execution part, that's why this game's so difficult, man. You gotta do so many things in so little time, so many evaluations, right? If I was this Morgana, would I have escaped that? Well, probably not. It's obvious, like, when you have the Black Shield down that you should respect it, but... Look at Ignar's positioning here. Very awkward. Like, he steps in first and disrespects the Caitlyn. Look at that, look at that, look at that. Like, here he should have been kiting down, because he no longer had his AoE or his ultimate. So he should have just kited down away from the Kate. But instead, he moves up, and now just gets, like, 5 autos on the Caitlyn, right? Like, just for free. So it's very unlucky on that one. Oh, that trap really sucks balls, by the way. So that's just, like, there's misplay galore, right? Like, there's so much. That's why I like League of Legends. One of the reasons I like League of Legends so much is that it's so complex that even pro players have, like, infinite potential to improve, right? It's like, if you look at darts, it's like, when I look at those guys, like, hit hit essentially like hit a needle within half an inch, like less than half an inch of an area on a board from like almost 2 meters away. And it's just like, how do you do that? And you just do the exact same motion over and over and over again. And the question, how can you improve on that? All you can do is just do that same motion. Just do some strength training and just do the muscle practice, right? Like maybe using a custom board, like maybe practice on different positions on the board. I don't know if that matters, if those different positions and different muscles. At that point, it's like, sure, there might be a little bit of math involved in this one, but at some point you just cap out. While in League, you can just keep rolling, dude. You can just... There's no capacity... In no capacity do you ever get to your skill cap, essentially, right? It doesn't happen. It's almost impossible. Like, you can just keep playing and keep improving. That's so cool. I think that's so cool, right? Even if you can't actually attain that level, right? That perfection... Just the fact that you can infinitely aspire towards it makes it a very interesting and interactive game to me. That's why I love League of Legends, you know? So people always say, like, well, if this game wasn't so popular, I wouldn't play it. I wouldn't play it. It's like, you're free to do whatever you want. Like, you can make, like... Have you ever noticed there's Minecraft channels on YouTube? There's StarCraft channels on YouTube that do well. There's people that talk about Dragon Ball Z for a living. You can do whatever the fuck you want if you find a way to target an audience with it, right? So I don't understand the attitude of, oh, it's popular, so I have to play it. It's like, no, you don't. And these are usually not pro players either. That's the funny part. It's literally like people like ConClown who don't even really do anything with the ability they have to play the game. They're not even playing in top tier competitive, right? It just makes no sense to me when I hear that. It's like, I understand there's some balance issues and design issues with the game that are not being proactively resolved by Riot, and if you ask me why, I don't know. Is it because they're incompetent and they're like not very skilled at the game, they don't understand those design concepts, and they just have a job because, you know, human resources works in a different way from a competitive ladder? I don't know, dude. I don't know how I should analyze that. But the fact of the matter is, it's still a fun as fuck game with infinite potential. So, yeah, say whatever you want, dude. And meanwhile, we see these super clutch engages. This is just like two pro teams showing what they got. But there's no takedowns because they both kite away so safely. None of the teams really commit. Even though they use ultimates, they don't commit. Like the Vel'Koz as well, he throws out a max range ultimate. He knows that he's not going to get counter engaged anymore, especially with all his ults down. So essentially very, very safe play on both teams. Even though it looks kind of like going rumbling in for this turret, it's like they're all throwing it out in a way like, oh, I'm going to hit my ultimate, I'm going to kite back towards my team. Oh, no, kite back towards the team. Right, so it really doesn't impress me, right, on either team. It's like, yeah, they did fine. They did fine. That's it. They didn't identify a target that was out of position or something at the level where I wouldn't be able to do that, right? They're just playing it the safe way. I could do that. Anyway, moving on, we're moving into the mid game here, and the map's kind of getting opened up, busted for these turrets. As you can see, BBQ has executed their composition a little bit better than the Kangdu team, because if you look at how the Olaf has played this, he tried to pressure Sejuani, but because of his actual mechanical way of doing so, right? For instance, the auto-pathing, when he tried to throw the axe, right, he should just stay out of turret range and then throw out max range. But instead, he tried to go for an auto attack, and instead of using direct inputs, he actually clicked on Sejuani's hitbox, which means that he's subject to Riot's auto-pathing, which means he just started moving in all directions pretty much randomly and not move towards the target location. And essentially, that got him killed, right? Like, that's just like, yeah, it doesn't work. And the Sejuani, even though she played it poorly, still got away with a 1-for-1 trade because of that, right? So the Sejuani could have been absolutely clobbered by a more accurate jungler. I'm not going to say accurate, right? Because Olaf clearly had the macro game mapped out properly. Like, I wouldn't do it any different from him. Like, that's just made absolute sense. Except for the Gromp. Actually, still, I have to make that statement. He went for the Gromp. If he didn't go for the Gromp, he could have killed the Sejuani way before she actually reached into the river. And literally just, like, kill her before she could get any sort of pressure going. Like, it could kite towards the turret or something. It's not going to happen. What would probably happen in that case is she would, like, if she saved the E in the river, she would get away easily by jumping over the wall. If she does that when doing the Gromp, chances are she's used it. And if she didn't use it, at least she'll have to go over the wall, and then you can finish the Gromp and she has no pressure, right? So in this scenario, you suddenly have complete dominance over the Drake Pit, right? So you have full knowledge of where the Sejuani is going to go next, and you have full knowledge of, what's it called? Full control over the Drake Pit, so you can decide to do Drake or not. Olaf is one of these champions that lifesteals so much that you can do it pretty early on. Don't quote me on exactly when you can do it, but I'm fairly confident if he played it this way, he could have perhaps gone for an early dragon. Especially with his flash still up. In case the Sejuani would literally walk outside of base and instantly walk towards that. I don't know if that would work, but it's such high variance for Sejuani to do that, because Olaf has other options, right? Olaf can simply back after the Gromp, or up to gank bot lane. In those cases, it wouldn't really work. Ganking bot lane, probably not possible, would have to be a dive, and that would be almost impossible to pull off, right? Anyway. So, Vel'Koz gets a nice ultimate off and gets 2 summoners here. Now let's watch how they play this out. So you are BBQ, and you realize that Ornn is coming, Cyan is coming, and you just used Vel'Koz and trade summoners with that. So that means you have a temporary lack of power because you used an ultimate, right? But you got 2 summoners, which in the long run obviously heavily favors you, right? So now let's look at the compositions for a second. Make sure that you realize both of them excel at fighting in pits. And what happens in that scenario is, like, the team that clusters up more inside of a pit simply loses, right? Because both teams can abuse someone who does that. Especially the Ornn with his ultimate, but even just the Scion and then the Swain, they can also do that, and Morgana. Really, both compositions function the exact same way in that regard. So, looking at what they're gonna do now, they can play it slow, right? They can try to pressure the tier 2 mid for as long as they want to, right? This Caitlyn is low health and has no summoners, so it's super easy for Ornn to make a play on that when they start sieging. She has to pretty much back off entirely. But instead they go for the Baron. And as I just said, they're very weak in pits. They are very vulnerable when they go for that in the pit, right? And look at this. So the Ornn loops around, I presume. No, the Ornn just stays mid lane. And this is one of the most crucial... Okay, how do you use this Ornn ultimate? If you were the Ornn, where would you use it? Would you use it on the Olaf, who has to burn an ultimate for it? Would you use it on the Morgana, who can black shield it? Or would you use it on the Scion, who can ult it? So the answer is none, right? You just hold on to that ability. He should have looped around. Fuck this wave. I mean, yeah, unlucky. You miss 100 gold. This fucking Baron we're talking about. And you just kite towards here, and you have many options to use your ultimate from that point on. There's gonna be someone like a Swain, right? There's gonna be a Caitlyn without summoners. They can't shield all of those people, right? There's only one black shield, and Cyan and Olaf are not targets, right? So, Morgana, Swain, and Caitlyn are the 3 people that you can target with this, and only one of them can get black shielded. Instead, he waits it immediately and does it in the middle here, and he just happens to hit a shielded Scion ult. What? Why would you do that, right? Do you understand that? Wait, I don't have the webcam on? What the fuck? Alright, well, let's fix that right now. Move up, I said. I can just press Ctrl down, but what's the fun in that, right? Oh, wait, I didn't have the no filter monitor. Whoops, my bad. Anyway, guys. What? Why does he do that? Look at this ultimate. Look at this dude. Right? Doesn't hit anyone. Ornn is on the blue team, right? On the red team, right? Not on the blue team, so doesn't hit anyone. And Scion, instead, makes massive value with his ultimate and his AoE ability here. he actually does that shit. And then Morgana gets in. What did I just say about these people having AoE abilities that function very well in the pit? They all clustered up. They all got fucked. The Swain ultimate, the Morgana ultimate, Cyan AoE, and Ornn just throws it out at nobody. And the fact that they didn't siege tier 2 turret in the first place. Those two things, right? The mechanical misplay and the macro misplay. I'm just like, what am I watching here, dude? Like, come on, dudes. You know you just burned Caitlyn summoners. Play it slow, man. Play it slow. Alright, moving on. Because, I mean, I couldn't care less about the clearing waves. Oh, that's interesting. Alright, try number 2. This time, they know what's up, right? Caitlyn still doesn't have summoners. Ornn has that ultimate. And in this time, Ornn is already with the team. He's not trying to kite towards the team and then throws it out in a panic because he realizes Cyan is just going to bypass him with the ultimate. Ornn is now present in the pit. Ornn is not going to waste his ultimate. And it's still going to be 2 people in the pit. Now let's also watch on KDM's side. They have to do the exact same thing they did last time. Spread out and make sure that Ornn can never hit more than 1 or 2 people with his ultimate. And let's see how both teams execute it this time. Alright. So, Cyan teleports. All the way over here. All the way over here. Couldn't one of these people have just warded? Like, it's like, I understand the concept of a flank, but this is a little bit far away. It is... Okay, so what they now have to do, they have to stall, right? They have to stall, play it slow, try to poke max range, and just wait for the Cyan to come in for the flank, right? And let Cyan engage. And this Baron, as they can see right now, is on 5.9k health. So they have like 5 to 7 more seconds, right, if you do 1k damage. And look at this, they already start engaging, so they have to start backing off, right? And now you see the Ignar going for the most brilliant flank in all of time. Like, look at this pink ward. Look at how he looped around. Ignar. I don't know if that's how you pronounce your name. Ignar. You're fucking brilliant. Keep it up, dude. Anyway. Yeah, you're fucking brilliant. That's all I can say, dude. Look at that. And they clump up. And look at how the Ignar wastes his engage, by the way. Ignar. Not the best on the execution there. Those guys were already knocked up and about to die, and one of them had a black shield on him. So probably look for this guy over here with the jump, and then wait for a second with the ultimate, probably. Like, yeah. Right, this black shield, boom, it's over. These people could have been ulted now. So that's very bad from Ignar's part, but the flank itself was just absolutely amazing. And look at how they get caught in the root, because they just position themselves. They don't spread around like this. They just stand in a line behind each other. Again, these positional concepts, like, I expect these pro teams to be able to position themselves accordingly. Like, I expect these coaches and analysts, right, that are part of this infrastructure to instruct the players to do that. To go like, all right, when we're gonna do these fights in the pit, that's where it all comes down to execution. We need the Cyan to engage if they're like on the Baron and it's 5k health. Don't rush it. Make sure it goes down to very, very low. If you win the entire fight, that's fine. If it comes down to 50-50 smite because it can actually be finished, that's fine. As long as you win that fight, it's the main priority. Making sure they don't get that Baron is only the secondary thing, in my opinion, right? When you when you have the potential to kill everyone clean, right? Like just like this, like almost every player dies here, right? So I feel like if you execute the fight better, that's way more important. Yeah, anyway. So, not clean on either team. The execution on the flank itself was brilliant. Could have ended the game right there, but the execution, oh. Just wait for a second, dude. Like, don't knock up the knocked up targets. First of all, one of them, they were both CC immune. Like, that guy was already dead. And the Olaf is gonna ult, right? Just wait for the Morgana and Caitlyn to no longer have anything to protect them, right? Like, that black shield is bound to end anyway. So... But yeah, the fact that they do the same thing, but this time they actually used the Ornn, right? That was very good. And the fact that the Kongdu actually didn't wait for the Cyan to flank, in my opinion. Huge blunder. Last time it was exactly the other way around, right? Cyan got the perfect ultimate value, right? Just knocking 2 people up and then following up with his knock up. And in the meanwhile, just the Ornn being absolutely useless, right? And this time it's exactly the other way around. Ornn, super good ultimate. And then the Cyan just wastes. Like, he's just not there yet. The team should have stalled for him. So yeah, lots of specific things happening. Really interesting stuff. In the meanwhile, the BBQ should be able, at this point, to take this game home, right? They're only down 1 Infernal. That's not anything to write home about. Like, that's just like, yeah, sure, dude. I mean, you have a 6k gold lead and a Baron. Maybe only 5k gold lead, actually, but sure. Close enough. They should be able to take this home, right? It's like, come on. Shouldn't be hard, dude. Just pound on the base, dude. Yeah, let's just wait and see, right? Like, okay, they teach this turret. Makes sense, right? They go for mid or bot, and they decide to go bot. It's like, yeah, whatever. It's probably got to do with the minion positioning, right? Like, I don't know where the players were exactly. I didn't really analyze it, but I presume that's just always these little specific things that are dependent on where you are and where the minions are. And they actually force an engage with Sion and only hit the tank. I'm not sure why Sion actually opts for that. Like, he didn't even seem to miss it. He just seemed to purposefully go for that. And it's just like, in the meanwhile, Caitlyn does not get the black shield on the ultimate from Sejuani, so I'm not sure what Sejuani was waiting for there. Morgana was waiting for there. And then Morgana disrespects. After she saw Caitlyn get hit, they knew the fight was lost, and she still kites around for a second and then backs off. Lots of positional mistakes again. I mean, of course, I'm stressing too much that they're making mistakes. Of course, these are still pro teams, and the way they engage, like the way Sejuani hits that Caitlyn ult was brilliant, right? Max range, right? And the way that they kite around here, it's like, yeah, they're pro teams, but I would expect more than this, right? Like, I do expect Morgana to deliver the black shield when this Sejuani ult is slowly, like, flooping around in that team fight. That should be your number one priority, right? Shielding Caitlyn. Or at least shielding the person that receives the Sejuani ult. I mean, that makes sense to me, at least. So I'm not sure. She was focused, must have been focused on someone else, something or someone else. It's just absolute, and that, in my opinion, is just absolute blunder in and of itself. This was a patch where you could still do banner command on the Baron minions, which was absolutely fucking busted. They fixed it by now, because that is just not fun, dude. That is too strong. Look at that. Look at that guy. Look at that dude. What were they thinking? Yeah, I'm glad that she's removed from the game now. That was very impressive. So, I mean, BBQ doing a fine job here at taking the game home, but they're not there yet. They do need, like, at this point, once you have that inhibitor, the game is almost over because the inhib pressure is so, like, hard to deal with, right? Essentially, an inhibitor is like a way of saying to the game, like, we should win now. It takes a huge blunder on our part to lose it, right? That's kind of what, at the point that you get the inhibitor, it's like, the game should be sealed, and now it's up to the team that has the inhibitor to make huge fucking throws over, like, something like a Baron or something, right? Or maybe composition that doesn't skill into late. Like, those are just a few conditions under which you can lose when you get that first inhibitor at a good time. Like, it could be at the worst possible times when it's like it's not gonna hit the timer on a Baron or a Dragon, right? Especially the Baron, but that's very rare. So just generally speaking, that's just like end of game, go next, right? Okay, well, they're moving in for the next turret. That's it. That much is obvious. And again, I don't know exactly why they didn't go for mid. I don't know if there's something I'm missing out on here. I wouldn't look too deep into it. I presume, again, I didn't really look at where players were at one particular point in time, but I still presume they could just do that on both. Considering that the lengths of the lane are different, the cannon waves are also different, so they're pushing the mid turret now on the cannon wave. So maybe if these people are really 200 IQ, they can push on cannon minion waves, which is something I haven't ever seen a team do. But that would be some next tier shit to actually do that on cannon minions on purpose, right? Like, because of the different lengths of the lanes, you can just go to one of the cannon waves and then to the other. That would be brilliant, dude. That would be brilliant. What a way to solve the tiebreaker when both lanes are fine, right? Because obviously if you have a Drake up or something, you want to push a lane closer to Drake, right? So that you have pressure from that lane, and that it makes it harder for the enemy team to just surpass those minions into the Drake pit, because you have vision control, right? So they have to usually deal with the fact that everything they do is telegraphed entirely, right, from the minion vision. But in general, besides that, and which turrets are standing, right, whether there's a turret that's of a higher tier than the other turrets, right, like a tier 1 instead of a tier 2, right, obviously you want to get those first, right, that makes sense. And after that, I guess cannon minions, that works for me, dude, like, makes sense. In general, mid, I would say, is a little bit more relevant, right, just because it's the center of the map, right, so the vision you get from that is just a little bit more relevant than the vision from the side lanes, right, it's relevant for both objectives, Baron and Drake. So yeah, oh, and you see this counter engage, like, it doesn't really work, right, like, they had so much health, they just are unable to burst through this team. They do have a very nice composition of, like, tanks that can tank and squishies that can, you know, sit in the back line, and the KDM don't really have that target access. They are very, very, very safe and tanky team composition. Swain tanky, Sion full tank, Olaf just runs into you kind of like a Juggernaut style, right? Kind of tank, off tank, and then you have Morgana, very safe, sort of like, you know, all-around champion that does everything from team fighting, picking, and that's it, not sieging, right? Team fighting and picking, right? So they don't really have that insane target access that some other champions like Rakan deliver, right? Rakan is more of that go full ham into the backline. Ornn, yeah, it's just they have more target access. What can I say? And they just pick off someone just like jerking off in the mid lane. I don't know what he was doing there, but yeah. He's so far extended beyond their inhibitor, right? Like, what are you doing? Just wait for the wave to kick in. I mean, it's like, it's clear that the red team's gonna shove it. They're not gonna give up a shove for 6 CS, right? So obviously, you're not even gonna get the CS for it, right? You're gonna get the CS anyway. So you're gonna miss, like, maximum 1 or 2 minions because of that. Oh, for a second I was mindfucked by the fact that they could walk over the traps, but those are Caitlyn's traps, and that's on the same team, right? Woo! 200 IQ! Wow. Confirmed. I don't know, this is my Simpsons impression from that guy. I think I'm very smart. I know that Caitlyn traps do not work on the same members of the same team. Anyway. Yeah, I mean, what can I say, dude? Whoops. Ignar going for another of his fucking brilliant flanks. This time he gets spotted. They actually have wards on that side of the map. They actually countered against the flank. They don't get caught by the same trick twice. That is the kind of shit I expect from a Korean pro team, right? That kind of shit, like warding against the flank. Good shit, boys. Good shit. Ignar making sure he doesn't lose his entire health bar and that they have to actually reset or anything. And Olaf has to burn the ultimate, so no further abilities wasted on that this time. No Ignar ult on an Olaf with ult this time around, luckily. They seem to be picking up on their errors. That's good. And Ignar is just kind of guarding the flank here. I'm not sure why, though. Like, he's looking for a flank onto the backline, as you can see, right? Like, that is just Ignar's play, like, one and only way of playing this, right? Because he's too squishy to stay on the front line and move towards the back, like a tank can do, right? So, flanking is the only option, right? You don't have the target access of an assassin to walk past the backline, and don't have the tankiness of a bruiser, right? So you can't do either of those things. You just have to move in the flank. Yeah, that's just how you play this kind of champions, right? Okay. And then you see BBQ, some awkward misplays, right? But overall, just making sure they played the lowest variance way possible. They actually get the bottom inhibitor through the minions that were there, actually, so that's also very lucky. And now, because the blue team just decides to absolutely back off from this minion wave, right? Like they're just like, okay, never mind. You get the Baron, you get the game. I'm not sure if that would have been necessary. It just feels like a little bit of overkill that they send the entire team out. I guess what their reasoning is that they lost the Baron. They just lost it, right? They had to give up the Baron. Because if you look at how much they already used the Olaf ultimate. They already used the Sion ultimate. I'm not sure. They didn't use the. They didn't use everything. I'm not sure why they went for this. If I look at this, their abilities were actually already back up, so I feel like they could have just, like, they don't need to send 5 people to protect against 1 inhibitor minion, right? I don't know if they feel like they should have sent at least 1 person, and then it's kind of pointless to try and counter this. But in any case, I feel like if they want to win, they would just have to give up the turret, possibly. I doubt that it would go down, but at least give up turret damage and just contest the Baron. I really don't understand what they're trying to go for here. Like, oh, let's hope they don't actually push with the Baron. Well, I'm afraid to tell you that they are going to push with that Baron, my friends. You have lost the game at this point. So I disagree with that kind of, like, low variance doesn't work in a situation like that where you certainly lose under certain condition, right? Under status quo of the game, you have to make a play to change the outcome. In that case, low variance doesn't work. You have to go for a cheesy play, of course, with proper judgment inbound, right? Like you can't just, like, obviously there's always limits to how suicidal and maniacal you can start playing just because you need to make a play, right? So always, that's always the difficult part about these things, that just analysis alone will never solve the entire equation, right? You always have to look at execution in particulars in one situation. So Sejuani is just picking up those bot side minions, just getting them to the base faster. It's just a tempo play. It's just a way to get that last Nexus turret faster, right? With double inhib minions, empowered by Baron, right? Those minions are just gonna absolutely destroy that turret once they get there. So the blue team actually goes for an attempted engage. I'm not sure if Sion failed his driver's license test, but he actually hits the wall on the bottom there. I'm not sure why. Look at this, like, if he just kited towards the center, and then if Vel'Koz would have kited towards the bottom, he could just hit this pole here, like, from the turret, right? The debris from the turret, he could just hit that. So I would have probably opted to go through the center, and then move towards this side or this side, depending on where the Vel'Koz kites towards, right? So I think that's another one of these things. That's one of the last opportunities they had to try and make an engage happen, and they failed it at this point. They know they lost, right? And Rakan goes in for a beautiful ultimate. Doesn't even need to flank this time around, right? They actually don't get their targets because they were just focused on killing off that one person, right? I feel like they could have moved on forward a little bit harder. And yeah, they didn't get that target. Like, Vel'Koz, the Swain's playing it like Vel'Koz doesn't have a Seraph's Embrace. I guess you could, I mean, you can't really justify it saying, well, what if he didn't use it, because then it would still be a 1-for-1, so it's just stupid. Stupid all the way through. But yeah, overall, like, this is a pretty interesting game, right? To see two teams battle it out, and, like, one team go for this kind of flank, and then the other team ward up against the flanks, and then the next time around, like, they fuck up the whole Sion engage, so next time around they bring Sion in closer, and the same with Ornn. They screw up with the Ornn, they fix that second time around, let the Ornn tank the Baron, and move out of the pit for an ultimate properly this time around. It was really interesting for me to see how these players adapted to their mistakes during the game, right? That's really interesting. Like, I feel like they haven't reached their max potential, either of these teams. I don't know. Like, in the LC, if you're playing like this in the LCK and you're up against the big guys like KT or SKT, right? You're gonna get dumpster, dude. Like, if you make all these kinds of individual misplays and then the macro is kind of shaky as well, you're gonna get dumpstered. Wouldn't want to be ya. See ya. Yeah, well, anyway, so that's it for this one. That's this game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, consider leaving a like. If you want to see content similar to this in the future, consider subscribing, because we'll be making more of this kind of content in the future. And if you have any kind of suggestions for what I should analyze next, or any content you want me to make next, leave your thoughts in the comments below, and I will certainly take a look at it and take it into consideration. That's it for this one, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. See you in the next one.